All right, guys. Just wanted to go through and just do a brief kind of explanation video on your Battle for Information assignment that you'll be working on in class today. This is a teacher example that I'm going to go over with you. So this is just something that I was kind of researching and doing over the course of over the course of the last hour or so. So I just wanted to get on here, record a video for you with like a webcam feed, so that way you could just see my face. One, a lot of you probably haven't even seen my face, but also two, just give you guys a good explanation on how to go about completing and verifying the news. Because if doing this right, it should take some time and be a kind of a step-by-step process just to verify one basic news story overall. So the directions for this is you're comparing and contrasting the coverage of one single news story that appears in multiple different outlets. And it can be on the same day or maybe a few days apart, but we don't want a whole lot of lag time in between when that story that you picked and then the other ones from the different outlets, right? You don't want like 2-3 weeks of lag time, just because there's going to be other conditions that will drastically kind of change the interpretation of the news story. The target for this is comparing and contrasting. That generally tends to be one of those skills that is difficult for young people to learn because they're two kind of competing ideas. When you contrast something, you're looking for differences. When you're comparing, generally speaking, you're looking for similarities. The historical thinking skill that you're practicing by doing this assignment is continuity and change, because you're tracing information through various sources, so that can confirm similar or different ways that same news story is covered throughout these various media outlets. The grade level expectation you're practicing is analyzing and interpreting information, which we take for granted in 2020, but that is certainly a skill that we need to learn more of. Okay, so step one is just to select from a news outlet from each of these 5 categories. And really, it's not all 5. Really, you're going to primarily be using 3 categories and then using the others to help you when it comes to evaluating the source. All right. So category 1, and those are all suggestions, but you can pick a news story from any of those publications. Where I would suggest all of you start, which is where I started, is going to this site called allsides.com. It would look something similar to this, okay? You would just go to Google and just type in allsides.com, and this will pull up for you. And then the home screen will have all these different topics that are at the top, like you can see if you're following my cursor, see all these topics. There will be several subtopics right here in the home page that you can pick from. And I actually just picked one of those subtopics. I just selected police reform because that was on this hottest topics of 2020 tagline they had here. So that's what I selected, was police reform, because I know that's been something that's been controversial and in the news quite a bit. So I was assuming that this is going to be in all of these different publications, no matter which one I chose. And after I did the basic search, this is what I get returned to me. So this is where I would suggest most of you start. You don't have to, but again, this is a suggestion to make it easier for you, is starting with this All Sides site, because it does an excellent job of separating things out by bias. So like news from the left, which would be like Democratic, liberal. News from the center, which generally takes perspectives from both the right and the left. So it does take that perspective. So that's going to be something that you'll get more of an even-handed, I would suspect, angle and perspective. But that's not to say that you might not get a left and or right-leaning bias while you're reading the article, because even if something is in the center, they tend to either be center of left or center of right. Very few things that we read nowadays, or anything that we read, listen to, watch, is straight down the middle when it comes to politics. There's always usually going to be some element of bias there, and that's a natural human thing. So bias is natural, but it's when that bias has some negative ramifications for society where we need to rethink our bias, right? And then, of course, news from the right, which will give you some right-leaning publications that you can, if you're looking for something that's more of a perspective of the right, left, or center, there is something here for any of you when it comes to analyzing and breaking down a source. So what I actually chose, as far as that goes, is I actually picked this one. Is it possible to rid the police of officers' bias? So what I did is I just clicked on it, and when you click on it, it'll take you here. Now, if you want to read the whole story, you have to go to the actual, and you do need to go to the actual web page, because you got to provide me a link. So if you go to read full story, it'll automatically shoot you over to the BBC or whatever news publication you choose. Okay, it's a little bit longer of an article as it's loading, so you can see the pictures are a little off center, whatever, no big deal. But if you scroll down, that's where the article starts, and that's where you start to read. Okay. And since I don't know what article you're going to pick, I don't have like already read articles for you to choose from where you can just pull up a recording and listen to me read it to you. I'm not going to be doing that this time. This is something that you'll have to do on your own. So then all I would do, and I haven't even read the article yet, but I say, all right, I'm going to do police reform. I'm just going to pick this article. I'm not going to dive into it yet until I find a couple others that I can, that with the same topic. So I would just go up to the top, copy your link, and then I go back here and you can see I posted the BBC link. It's right down there, right? So that's the BBC link. So I posted it there, all right? Well, now I got to find the same type of topic or the same news story in the same, or in a different category now. So if I go back to all sides, right? Well, now I have, oh, okay. Well, I need to pick something from maybe a different perspective. So what I just went to the top, and the very first article was from a left-leaning media publication called Vox. So clicking on it, okay. Democrats are running on the most progressive police reform agenda in modern American history. Okay, well, I'll click on that. I already have the article populated because I was reading it. So this is the article, okay, from Vox. And one thing you can get your initial impressions of how it leans, other than looking at all sides. I mean, look what images they give you right off the get-go. They're giving you images of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the very front with masks on, the whole bit, so that you know that it's probably already your initial impression is, all right, this is going to be more left-leaning. Paying attention to things like author, who wrote this thing, right? Which you could then search this person's name and find out their credentials and who they are. In fact, that's a great habit to start getting into. So Raji Karma. So just open up another tab, and I just want to find out a little bit about this person, guaranteeing you have a Wikipedia page. So Raji, oh, I already forgot the dude's last name. Karma. Oops. My bad. Karma Vox. And who is this person? Ah, okay. So you get several things, right? Profile activity. So you look on it, and actually, to be truthfully honest with you, you probably could have just clicked on his name. Yeah. Duh. So not all sites do that, though. I think this is one thing where, not all sites have that. So that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. You can click on the person's name, and actually, unfortunately, it just tells you they're a researcher. Okay? Yeah, and it tells you kind of the same thing. And if you scroll down, there's not a whole lot other than that. So you would have to do a little more digging, really, to find out who he is, because, honestly, just going to Vox and looking at theirs, probably isn't the best. Okay. Twitter, my bridge story, hashtag my bridge story, articles. Okay. So you can kind of see what he's written before. So Vox, Real Clear Politics, The New Republic, The American Prospect, Current Affairs, Real Clear Education. And it's got articles that he's written before. So if you really wanted to dive into his bias, so on and so forth, you'd be able to dive into that if need be. Of course, I'm not going to be doing that just for the sake of time in the video. All right, but moving on. Okay, so let's close that and let's go back to the example. Okay, so I went to Vox, then again, category 2, I copy and paste that link, right? So there you go. With category 1, okay, I went with a Heritage Foundation article, all right, which is this one right here. Reform of Policing, What Makes Sense and What Doesn't. So Heritage Foundation is a right-leaning think tank, which tends to be more research and evidence-based scholarly work when you have a think tank doing it. That does not mean they're without bias. Not even a little bit, right? In a lot of cases, sometimes they can be more biased because now they're using academic data to back up their opinions. So, and with Category 4, I actually didn't have time to do a Category 4 one, but that's a basic one. That's like CBS News, and that's easy to find, right? I mean, it ain't like CBS or NBC or any of the major news outlets haven't done something on police reform. So that you'll be able to find whatever topic you're searching, you'll be able to find one with one of those major news outlets. So then what I did here is I did answer questions 2 and 3 based upon the articles that I read for you, and that's something certainly that if you pause this video, you can read my responses. But on question 1, I just set up the structure for what you're going to have to do during your article, okay? So what facts appear in every story, which appear in only one story? Well, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to read that Heritage, Vox, and BBC article and be taking notes about like factual data and information or opinions that you see. And you need to jot those down in this section right here. Okay, so this question might take you a little bit of time, and that's perfectly fine. So while you're reading, you want to maybe have this up so that way you can go back and input some facts and data in there, because if you make kind of this nice little comprehensive list from all these articles, well, now you can compare and contrast these lists. Okay, now you can see, all right, what is similar from one story to the next? What is different from one story to the next? Okay, and you can kind of see where those perspectives end up changing. All right, okay, and then with step 2, if you use something like an all sides, all right, this will do a good job of fact checking that for you, because if it's on that all sides webpage, it's already been fact checked, so it's reliable. It just never makes this determination on the bias of the article, right? So that bias is something that we're going to be constantly engaging with when we look at like modern day current events and things going on around the globe in this course, because no source is going to be without bias. Even your teachers, okay, we all have a bias. It just comes out sometimes. Well, some of us do it subtly, others do it pretty, forcefully. And some, do a great job of kind of flip-flopping and switching between what they're biased on, and primarily to confuse their students so that way they don't necessarily know. So if you use something like all sides, this step 2 should be easier. All right. Now, if you use something like the PolitiFact or Snopes or something like that, which those are all things right up here in this category 5. So if you use something like a Washington Post fact checker, okay, when you're searching, all right, it's going to have to probably give you a little bit more of a, I would say, it will just give you more of a bias, right, in its evaluation of the facts, because, well, that Washington Post is owned by Amazon, and the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, is no friend of the Trump administration, as they have in the news have traded, rhetoric back and forth. Okay, so hopefully that explanation of the video helps, or explanation of the assignment helps. I realize the video is a little bit long, but it certainly will help those of you who might get stuck and you're just twisted in the wind, not necessarily knowing exactly how to go about completing this. If you have any questions, be sure and post maybe in the comments of YouTube, or you can shoot me an email, text, etc. Usual ways. All right, hope everybody's doing well.